Joe. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wisconsin Science Festival event. Today we are participating in field trip, My Story in STEM. Today we are joined by Shamia and Kaylee, who will talk to us about their journey into getting into STEM and kind of what their current journey is happening within at the University of Wisconsin currently. So how can you join in today? You will notice there is a Q&A feature under the More tab where you can either join it and ask questions in the Q&A or in the chat at any time you prefer. As you are asking those questions, I will be sure to ask Kaylee and Shamia, regarding those questions, and they will answer as they move along. So to begin, we are first going to just do a little intro. Shamia and Kaylee will go about talking about themselves and where they're from. And then, yeah, please feel free to add into the chat. So Shamia and Kaylee, whenever you guys are ready to hop back on camera, I'll let y'all choose on who goes first. If y'all can't figure it out, I'll do it for you.
I can go first. So my name is Kaylee Manuel. I'm from Arizona. I'm from the Thanatham Nation, located in Tucson, Arizona. And I went to the University of Arizona, got my bachelor's degree in microbiology. And yeah, so I guess something interesting is I was never interested in science in middle or high school, and then happened to go into a program that exposed me to research, and then I fell in love with research. So, and then one fun fact, been learning how to ice skate recently. Just one, because I'm from the desert, so yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Shamia, Shamia Chapman. So I actually am from Chicago, Illinois. So I attended Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences. So that's where my love of science sort of really kicked off, was being in that atmosphere and being able to actually study animal science at an early age at that high school. And then I attended the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and studied animal science with the hopes of becoming a veterinarian. Obviously that did not happen, and I chose a different path, but it was where I first found my love of science and working in an environmental health aspect. And now I'm in the molecular and environmental toxicology program here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And as of last year, I was looking at environmental triggers of lupus and looking at how things like air pollution can cause autoimmune diseases like lupus to flare up or worsen. So I really enjoyed that process of exploring start to finish what it looks like to explore how environmental aspects can affect health. And a quick fun fact about me is that when I was in high school, attending that agricultural high school, I got to raise and sell tilapia to a local fish market. So that's one memory I always cherish. It was very fun. So.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was amazing intros. So yeah, just a reminder to everybody, today is just an open dialogue and just being able to answer and ask questions. So again, please put them in the chat. If you do put it in the chat, make sure that you have your two selected to everyone. I know sometimes you might send it probably to a specific person, and obviously we don't want to do that. And in the chat, yeah, just ask your questions and I will be sure to get them out. So Shamia, I'm gonna go to you first because I really want to know about this high school. How did you find this high school? What was the directional path to that?
So funny enough, when I was in middle school, the librarian there, her daughter actually attended the high school. So prior to that, I had no idea what it was or that it existed. And the first thing she said to me was, if you want to be a vet, you need to attend this school because they actually have a farm. And I was like, how far is this school from Chicago? And she said, no, it's actually in Chicago. So it is like one of the only farms still in actual Chicago borders. So it's further south on Chicago's southwest side, but it is a great school where you can explore a bunch of different pathways. I chose animal science, but what's nice is that every student in their freshman year experiences like these summer experiential learning activities. So you go through each pathway. We had horticulture, we had food science, you had the mechanical engineering, you had the agricultural business aspect. So each student had to go through that and really figure out what they wanted to explore for the next 4 years while at the high school.
That's super cool. How long has this school been around? If you know.
Yeah, I believe since like the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. But,
wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's funny that it takes how long it takes to like for programs for that to start in other places, because I feel we've had started like a pathway program here in Madison probably within the last, I think, 5 to 7 years or something like that. So it's crazy that there's something that's been like that for years, just 2 hours south of us. Yeah. Kaylee, to you talked about that you weren't even like initially invested in science. So what was that pathway for you?
Yeah, so I mean, my dad made me apply for different academic programs in high school. And so I randomly ended up in science. But I did study microbiology in a research lab at a university during high school. And I thought I would hate it, but I ended up liking it a lot, loving it a lot even. And so now I'm still here. Yeah.
As for either one of y'all, I would just like, I wonder like how diverse are your labs currently, and what do you guys do to try to either continue that diversity or to change the diversity?
I can go first. My lab is very diverse. Also, it's a very small lab. So we have one other grad student who's from China, and then a postdoc who's from India. And I'm actively recruiting undergrads to mentor. So, yeah. And also, my PI is like very much trying to go that route. Well, not trying to go, is going that route, trying to like recruit other diverse individuals.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kaylee, it's sort of the same for my lab as well, where you had a very diverse group. And I think before I came to the University of Wisconsin, I almost anticipated being like the minority in the lab spaces. But a lot of the PIs here actually do put forth the effort of trying to recruit students from different backgrounds, which is nice to see. Yeah.
That's awesome. Dope. Yeah. Let's see, we had a question for Kaylee. What would the undergrads do for your lab?
So right now I have one undergrad that I'm like directly mentoring. And so we're working on a project that's kind of a little bit extended from my thesis research. But other undergrads, I think they do like animal research or just learning how to grow virus, just skill sets that are important for viral research.
And kind of going next point of that for both of you guys, what is like the day to day for you all when you're in a lab or your school day? Like, what does that look like for a STEM major?
So different every day. So depends if I have a class or not, and then how I strategically plan my experiments. Some days are long, maybe like 12 hours, and then some days are really, really short, like go home by 4 p.m. Yeah, so all depends.
Echoing what Kaylee says, definitely depended on if you have classes or not, especially in the first few years of like a PhD. That first year is mostly just going to class. And I think the PIs understand that a lot of your time is dedicated to class at the start, but you find a good balance. You realize how to like manage things. As you can see, I'm still like in the microscope room, but you take that time. Yeah.
Can you guys share what your current study, or why am I forgetting the word? What is your current research, what you're doing?
So I study herpes simplex virus type 1. And so this virus can go into latency, which basically means it goes like asleep in your body. And you can be infected for years, decades, and we don't really know why that happens yet. And so I'm kind of studying that switch of like you have symptoms and then you don't. Like, why is that occurring? And then the other thing is, after years, decades, you can get sick again randomly. So that's kind of intriguing. Yeah, so I'm studying the like sick, not sick part of herpes.
And I briefly mentioned earlier what I was doing most of last year, which was looking at basically air pollution and common pollutants in the environment that can exacerbate lupus phenotypes. And by that, I mean, do you see earlier progression of lupus within our models? And then also using like in vitro and in vivo models, so looking at cells and looking at it from a molecular standpoint and going through, it could be very complex. But overall, it's just looking to see whether or not it progresses at a faster rate when we add in these harsh chemicals or toxins versus if we don't. So.
Can I ask what lupus is?
Yes, that's a great question. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. It tends to target organs within your body as well as joints. So a lot of times you'll see individuals who have lupus that'll have issues with their kidneys. A lot of times they'll have achy joints, so it'll be hard for them to walk or move around a lot when they're having what we call flares, or when it's like a heightened progression of inflammation for the patients. And then you also see what is very noticeable is like a butterfly rash, which comes across here from the nose out across the cheeks. So that's also a common phenotype with lupus as well. But yeah, there's currently no actual cure. It's a lot of stuff in motion to just help people with it, like be comfortable during those timeframes. And it does typically affect women of color, so Black, Native American women more. And it usually progresses once they hit, about 25 years old. So you usually see it as early as 18. So between 18 and 25 is when you'll start to see the onset, and then it progresses from there.
One more follow-up question. So is like abnormal cell growth, or what causes it?
Yeah. So that's a great question. It's honestly still being debated now, right? We can say it's environmental factors. We can say it's genetic. We do see typically that genetics does play a bigger role in it, but what our lab was looking at last year was whether or not genetic factors and being predisposed to it, as well as being in an environment with heavy air pollution just makes it worse or allows it to progress or be seen prior to that, natural onset for it. So say, for instance, you have women who are 18 years old who have a parent that have lupus. we're saying if you're growing up in an area that has air pollution, you might actually see signs of lupus prior to that child becoming 18. It might show much earlier in life, and it might be a lot worse down the road for that person as well. So it's like, how do we, navigate both factors and see whether or not on a molecular level it's actually causing these changes. But for right now, we are assuming that, yeah, gene environment interaction plays a huge factor in that.
So is it, I know you say environment, so obviously we know like, yeah, the, pollution, all those different things. Is there anything that you can do, growing up or as a youth that kind of prevents it, whether if it's foods or working out or, what is there anything of those type of solutions that has kind of come up?
The biggest thing I would say, just based off a lot of the research that is out there, is smoking. So avoiding carcinogens as much as possible. I think not smoking in general will help cut down your, chances of cancer, which is actually more prevalent in, people who have lupus, and they have a higher risk of developing like breast cancer. So I think, again, just trying to avoid carcinogens as much as possible. Though granted, like if you are growing up in a certain neighborhood that is like heavily polluted, there's not much you can do about it. And it's a part of the biggest worry we have right now, is helping people who are in those environments.
Shamia, we just got a question about just asking specifically what you might do in the lab. Do you work with live viruses or bacteria? If so, does that worry you?
I do not work with either. I typically work with human cells from lupus patients. So we have what we call keratinocytes, and we, we'll use that as well as different mouse models that have been like genetically modified to mimic lupus. And we are able to test like in vitro and in vivo, both models, to see if what we hypothesize is true.
I stand corrected. That was for both of you guys. So Kaylee.
Oh, I work with viruses and I love it. So viruses can only grow if they're in cells. So I also work with human cells, and I will infect the cells and then kind of do different experiments to like see what the process is to either like put the virus to sleep or wake it up, like I was mentioning before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it doesn't worry me because I'm very careful. So, but it's kind of crazy. So, my virus, herpes simplex type 1, can grow in epithelial cells, which are like skin cells, like anywhere on like your body, and also in neuronal cells. So think of like your brain, your neurons and whatnot. And so it's kind of crazy to me because I can grow neurons outside of a human body, which like still like blows my mind. And then I can study the virus in those neurons, which is insane. Yeah.
What does it look like to work with a virus? Like you walk into a lab, like what do you need? Where are you going? And also I have another question. This is super on the fly, but do you possibly have any pictures?
Pictures? Oh, maybe.
Don't worry
one
about
video where I infected, well, it wasn't virus though, but I infected cells with like it's called GFP. And basically if they take up the DNA, they glow green, which is very cool because you can like visually see it. What do I need to work with virus? Not much. Lab coat, like normal safety gear. We work in these biological hoods, basically almost a box, but like a little bit is open. Mm-hmm. And the airflow makes it so that nothing comes out and everything inside is sterile, or like there's no bacteria, fungi, other viruses. Yeah.
For both of y'all, what's like, how long does it usually take you to, I guess, finalize one of your research or part of your research? Like I know you're like constantly doing it, but when you do like one test, how long does that usually take before you're like, okay, this works or this doesn't?
I feel like that's loaded.
Yeah.
And Kaylee can probably speak on this better than I can as well. But I know for a lot of our projects from last year, it was doing one thing and then confirming it with another experiment, and then you confirm it with one more thing, and then you go back and you adjust. Because that's sort of the fun thing about science is like, you can hypothesize one thing will happen, that might not happen. So it's like going back and figuring out, okay, so what really occurred? So a lot of the finalizing can really be like never ending. It's kind of the fun part to me. To a lot of people, is like, oh, why would you ever want to keep doing that? But I think that's kind of the nice thing is like you decide where you want to stop, I guess, at a point. And that's kind of what a PhD is. It's like you try to answer as many questions as you can, whether it came out correct, whether your hypothesis is true or not. You know, you determine like, all right, I think this is a good stopping point, and this is, you know, my PhD. But,
Yeah, I didn't even ask you that question. What Kaylee answered the question, but I also want to know, like, yeah, what is your current status within school? Like, what is, I guess, your grade level?
So Shamia said everything correctly. I don't think there's a final stop for science ever, hopefully. But experiment-wise, some experiments take 30 minutes. Some experiments take 3 weeks. So it's like a very different, depends on what you're testing and whatnot. So yeah, work with viruses. I have to grow the cells, make them, so like grow neurons. And growing neurons is not a fast process, actually. Takes at least a week to grow them, and then I have to infect them with my virus so that I can see what the virus is doing. So that's also like another week to just like set up the experiment and then maybe do the experiment if they survive long enough to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So my following question: what is your current status within school? Are you, Shimmy, you said you're in a PhD program?
yes, so I am a PhD student in the molecular and environmental toxicology program, and I'm a second year in that program.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also a second year in the microbiology doctoral training program.
What do you guys have, like, what is your career goals, I guess? Are you just planning on doing research so you can't pick up anything else, or like what is the career idea?
I can go first. For me, I know that I would like to return to like an industry setting. Before starting my program here, I actually was working in industry for 5 years. So I would enjoy going back as a study director and then being able to like direct these different toxicology studies and helping determine, you know, what, you know, the next big thing is and how we can make sure that's safe and effective for human use. So, yeah.
And then for me, I have no idea what I want to do. Not yet. Definitely something research because that's why I'm here. But I've been considering the professor route. Just I feel like I could be a really strong student advocate and really push for different changes in academia.
Awesome. Shamia, a question for you. Do you use the equipment behind you?
Yes. So this is actually a new lab that I'm sort of sitting in their microscope room, but I was getting trained on how to use a few of the microscopes here for different staining of like tissues. So that's always fun. You're always learning something new. So I've used them. I'm not an expert at using them just yet, but yeah.
Awesome. Any way you can show us the lab? Like just a quick glance?
I can spin it around here because it's just the microscope. So it's nothing.
Okay.
Nothing fancy at all, but yeah, that's it.
I can show my lab if you want.
Yeah, that'd be super dope.
Okay,
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Safety first. And yes, Kelly's walking to our lab, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get those out.
So this is where I grow virus in human cells in the safety cabinets, which live box, but also like kind of open. And then show you my bench. Postdoc. And so, yeah, that's where I work every day. It's fun.
Awesome. And are you working with a lot of chemicals, Kaylee? Shouldn't ask you that while you're walking.
I can sometimes. I try not to unless I have to.
Yeah. Shimmy, a comment we got was those huge microscopes.
They are huge. Yeah, they're very heavy, very expensive.
I was about to say that. Yeah, I've heard about some prices of microscopes, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable moving them around. So y'all kind of talked about like your high school journey or whatever, but what was your kind of journey as like growing up? Like, was there anything that like inspired y'all beforehand, before it, like, Shmi obviously talked about, one of the teachers in the library and things like that, but like growing up, was there anything about that you think reflect on now, you're like, oh yeah, that kind of made sense, that I knew I would be in this role? Or were you just a complete different child and you're like surprised where you're at now? Again, loaded questions. This is my specialty.
I was a complete different child. I mean, in high school, I was like dead set. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be an engineer because my dad's an engineer. So and I like math, apparently. Oh, at some point. And then, like I mentioned, did a research thing, randomly did micro research, and then fell in love. So yeah. Definitely always try new things, because you never know. Like, you think one thing and then you find out something like completely opposite.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Like, I was dead set on becoming a veterinarian because as a kid, what did I watch? Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, and you always saw the vets that got to go out in the field and like photograph the lions, in their natural habitat. And I was like, this is awesome. That's what I want to do. But I think it's really important to definitely explore so many different options. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
We had a couple comments. One comment is, it is really cool. Thank you for showing your labs. And then Teresa, they said, what is your longest experiment that you have done?
I'd say like a 3-week long thing so far, but I haven't like actually done. First time doing it, so we'll see.
Last year, I had one project, and this is going back to the lupus stuff that I was working on that lasted from probably March of last year until it just finished up early October of this year. So that's definitely the longest project I've been a part of, for sure.
Yes. Wow.
A project or an experiment?
That was like the one experiment where we had to infect these different mice. So it was a part of my bigger project, but the experiment lasted that long because we kept adding new cohorts. So each cohort had to run for 12 weeks. And then after a while, it was just like, yeah, huge.
Yeah, I was gonna say, people come in at like crazy times if you're doing like growth curves of bacteria, like, or if you're taking samples from cells. Like, we have people coming in at like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to like get samples and like go home, go to sleep, and then like come back. But I know if you like do mycobacterium research, like that can be more than like a year-long study for like one experiment, which is kind of crazy. They just like grow really slow.
Teresa has also asked, has anyone gotten sick in working with live viruses?
Great question. Probably. In our lab, no. I mean, it's like pretty easy to like, if you're just not being careful or like not paying attention, I'm sure someone has like, I don't know, rubbed their eye or something, but no, I make sure to wash my hands after doing my research.
The question I have, what drew y'all to UW-Madison?
I can go first quickly. I always love the atmosphere here at UW-Madison, but it's also one of the few schools like in the Midwest that actually has a toxicology program. And it's like very, very well known, very well established. So it was almost like a no-brainer for me to like come here. Also being from Chicago, I was like, it's close enough. I can still go home whenever I need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So kind of similar. So from Arizona, grew up in a desert, so it's gotta be pretty good if I'm coming to Wisconsin winters. Depends on where you look or who you ask, but my program is the top in the US, so that's a big draw. And then also, I guess financially, there's differences between different institutions. So cost of living was a big thing for me. It's either here or Seattle, and in Seattle would not be able to live the same lifestyle.
Yeah, my sister-in-law wanted to go to Seattle, and everybody was saying, "Don't do it." Another question: do either of you get paid to do research? That's my kind of question.
Yes, that's yeah. As a grad student, at least in my program, absolutely get paid. That's the whole deal. Like I do the work, you pay me. Cool.
Same. You get your stipend to work in the lab.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, no, again, y'all, if y'all, those are great questions. If y'all have any more questions, please feel free to answer, to bring them on in. Yeah, do you guys, talking about coming to UW, that was kind of one, Kaylee, you kind of mentioned that as one of my things is like, it's so cold here. Most people like want to get away. Shamia, it seems like are you just in love with the cold?
Oh, definitely not in love with the cold, but I know how to manage in the cold. Yeah.
Kaylee, how have you been able to adjust?
I was gonna say, so the first time I've ever seen snow fall from the sky was last winter, which is crazy to me. And I went home for winter break, and like after Christmas, before New Year's, like I don't know, mid-20 December, it still hit 80. And then I came back and it was like such a shock. So yeah, adjusting was interesting.
Before UW-Madison, what was your college, I guess career, college story? Where did you start off as undergrad and move from?
Yeah, so undergrad I did University of Arizona, where I live, and then straight here. Yeah, full 180.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned earlier, I went to University of Illinois, Champaign, and then worked 5 years and then came here.
Shamia, what was your work?
So I had 2 different jobs during that span. The first was more in animal husbandry for Charles River Laboratories. And then I moved into an assistant toxicologist role for a small like contract research organization that focused on toxicology studies and tried to determine like dose ranges. So for instance, I always give this example of like your Tylenol bottle says to only take 2 tablets every 4 hours. That's essentially what we were determining, like how much of X treatment is required per hour, how many hours you need to span it, so you were safe and healthy when still taking the treatment.
Can I ask why industry for your future curriculum?
For my future, I think because it's what I know. A lot of people have asked me that, like, why not explore academia and look into teaching? And I am glad that at least next semester I'll do a TA-ship, so I'll be able to help in the classroom and get an actual feel for it, because that could very well change my perspective. But I think as of right now, I'm still stuck on, I kind of want to go back to that and explore being a study director and not the assistant in that space. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, we got about 10 minutes left. So before wrapping up, I want to know, did you all have any advice? We are on our call, most likely have middle school and high school students. What advice do you have for them as they are exploring what they may want to, where they may want to go to school or where they may want to study? Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before, but always try something, even if you don't think you'll like it. Because, I mean, it's like science, blah, and then it's like, oh, science, okay. Like, so definitely don't be scared to try things. Or, I mean, yeah, just don't be like turned away from trying new things, for sure. I don't know, might be surprised.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's important to remember that STEM is a big category. You have many jobs, many roles that fall into that. So I think exploring all of them, as many as possible, and just researching and reading up on what those look like is really important, because like me, I was stuck on veterinarian because that's what you see and that's what's in your face a lot of times. You know, you have these main jobs that are always publicized, but there are a lot of jobs out there, a lot of career paths out there within STEM that need more people of color, that need the diversity, that need your, you know, input. So definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'll even say I learned about jobs, new jobs, like this year. There's so many.
Same here, like.
And when you're not in the lab, what are some of your hobbies?
I like to take walks or just reading. Netflix is always nice when you just want to not think about anything as well. So any of those, dancing, playing soccer if I can, it's nice.
Yeah, ice skating. And then also I've taken a few dance classes here, and actually I minored in studio art. So I am a painter. So if I have free time, I oil paint.
Haley, what inspired the ice skating?
Oh, so during my interview, they took us ice skating, and I was like, this is kind of fun. And so now I just like religiously like go every week, and I'm like, I have to learn. And at this point, I kind of look like I didn't grow up in the desert, so I'm a little proud about that.
If you got recruited to be an Olympian, would you let science go?
Oh yeah, for sure. For ice skating, come on, don't ask me twice.
That's amazing. I love this conversation. Been so fun. I love how open y'all are. Yeah. Any other questions coming in? This is the time. I guess, did y'all have anything specifically that y'all want to share, or any questions that y'all might have had for the students or anything like that? We just put you on the spot.
I thought maybe talking about being a TA is interesting. Maybe like teaching as someone who doesn't feel like a teacher.
Yeah, please share. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am a TA this semester for like a discussion group. We read paper every week, different bacteria, virus, and then I lecture them about the background, and then we discuss it in different groups and then as a class. And so that's been really interesting for me, because I feel like some of them know more than I do, but I'm the professor in that course, so it's kind of interesting.
What does TA stand for?
Teaching assistant.
Oh,
so I do have a lead professor, but my lead professor is never there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of the professor in that course, at least.
Is that a paid role as well?
I think yes. So I have like a different source of funding that's already covered. It's a requirement for my program,
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can get paid if you need to.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Get paid. Shamia, do you have anything you want to share?
I will add that what's nice about grad school and studying sciences is a lot of programs allow you to rotate and try out different labs and find your like true interests and like passion. So I don't want students to think like, oh, I have to go into grad school and know exactly what, you know, big project I want to do. And that's not the case at all. So I think throwing that out there is like important as well.
I'll add, I didn't know what a virus was until my rotations, basically. So, like, absolutely don't need to know anything, have any background. Like, as long as you have the training to learn how to learn, then it's okay.
Really? Yeah, it's really special that you guys kind of just knew what you want to do. Well, Kaylee not so much, but for the most part, knew what you kind of wanted to do at, entering college. But for those that don't, yeah, exploring is very important. So I'm glad that y'all shared that. So yeah, I mean, this was a great conversation, and thank you guys so much for sharing those key points. That was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining with us today. I don't know if y'all are in the middle of testing or anything like that, so I hope this was a good little break until then. And then for those at home, thank you so much for joining in. This field trip. Oh, that's the next question. This field trip will be recorded, and as always, we ask that you do this in all activities at Wisconsin Science Festival with a responsible adult. We also like to thank all of our sponsors and partners to help make the Wisconsin Science Festival possible. You can find out more activities and events during the festival at wisconsinsciencefest.org. Again, wisconsinsciencefest.org, including joining the Wisconsin Science Festival Bio Blitz. And yeah, thank you guys so much and enjoy the rest of your day.